I wanna be the best in the game, invest in my name, check no restraints, I'm obsessed with the pain. I ingest, I retain, assess and I change, possessed by the thought I'll be free one day from society's restraints. Money, clout and fame, mud, disease, a plague. We all love to hate, have to play the game, have to make a name. All our insecurities are on display. This is war with the enemy, think that it was meant to be. Living in a time where disease is on every screen.
Hello and welcome back to Tactical Awareness. My name's Ash and I am one of your three hosts for episode 2 of season 1 of Tactical Awareness, where we are breaking down Fireteam fundamentals in Infinity and 4. This is a continuation of our series where we explore at 3 different sort of like experience levels this game. I'm the representative sort of the players who've been playing through all the way since N1. A returning hobbyist is Owen, who has been playing a ton of N3 and some N2, coming back into N4 and seeing what's changed. And our brand new hobbyist that we basically bullied into playing Infinity almost a month ago is Dan, and he is a representative of people getting into Infinity for the first time. So we're here trying to create resources and have quality discussions about the fundamentals of the game. If you tuned into episode 1 of season 1, we talk about list writing fundamentals, how to approach writing an army list in Infinity, and some rules and jobs before you roll up to the table. In this episode, we're going to be covering Fireteams, which was the topic that came up the most in the previous episode, where Dan kind of looked at Owen and myself and said, I don't know what that means when you say these words duo or Harris or core. And that seemed like the logical next step. So if you're picking models to go in your army list, you know what their roles are. And we can call back now to that episode if you haven't listened to it. And you have sort of like some assigned jobs for your combat groups. Now you can add in Fireteams too. So big thanks to everyone that commented on episode 1 and gave us feedback. We heard tons of great sort of comments and suggestions for our upcoming episodes. And let's dive in right now with Owen and Dan and cover some Fireteam explanations. And there will of course be another show notes document in the description if you want to follow along with what we're talking about. 3, 2, 1, and we are go for season 1, episode 2 of Tactical Awareness. This is going to be our episode on an introduction to Fireteams in Infinity. And much like our last one, this is going to be about clearing up some terms that we are throwing around like crazy. And when we noticed in the first pilot episode and then our previous episode 1, Dan would zone out and go, yeah, I don't know what Harris means. I don't know what duo means. I don't know what core means. We're going to build on our library of experiences and try and bring another topic basically to the front. So this one's going to be Fireteams. And before we jump in on this, we'll just go through and talk again about who we are. My name's Ash, and of the sort of 3 wise men that make up Tactical Awareness, I represent the person who's been playing for a long time, played through all 3 editions previous to N4. Owen is our returning player, played through all of the N2 and N3 and a bit of N4 series, and is back in N4. And then we have our brand new player, Dan, who is learning the ropes for the first time. So we kind of are trying to represent all 3 sort of like experience levels you could have.
What am I doing here?
You're the question guy. You're the shut up, Ash. You're using big words again, guy. We are going to introduce some jargon in this episode, though. So if you haven't listened to season 1, episode 1, on list building fundamentals, you're probably going to want to go back and listen to that one first, because it's going to make a lot of what we talk about like roles and combat groups and stuff make sense. So it's sort of like a episode warning. There's going to be some of that stuff. Big thank you for feedback from the first list building episode. There was a couple hot topic items that we're going to try and build on as we go forward here, like multi-role models. There was some debate about gunfighters. There's a debate about midfielders. There was even debate about like button pushers. So like multi-roles inside that and people straddling roles. Roles, of course, we defined as sort of like the jobs your models do inside of your army list writing, and some sort of like other sort of subclasses that people started talking about were like short range gunfighters for gunfighters, or hunting gunfighters with like high mobility, or ARO gunfighters who are good in the reactive turn instead of the active turn. And then there's a bit of debate about whether every specialist is a button pusher. Well, every specialist is not necessarily a button pusher, because button pusher is kind of defined by some mobility and being able to get to objectives and do them as a specialist. But every button pusher is a specialist. So it was interesting. It sort of kicked off lots of discussion, and it was really, I think, a great episode for talking about like how when you start off, those roles can be simple, but they get more complex the longer you play the game. So we'll catch up with what we've all been doing this week. I'll go last this time around, as far as Infinity hobby or Infinity games and stuff like that, even non-Infinity stuff, and then we'll dive into the episode. So let's start with Owen this time around. What have you been working on?
I've been playing games and painting JSA. I collected / picked up a, I don't know, 600-700 point army. And now I'm in the process of painting the entire thing. Other than that, I have been playing games, getting back into it after being away for so long, teaching Dan how to play, teaching people near Dan how to play.
Watch as I hit this guy over and over.
I see you again. So here's your problem, Dan. You see that werewolf that you're having trouble with? The trick to it is kill it first, and then you don't have to worry about that anymore.
That's right. Perfect. Great.
Yeah. Have you considered just killing them, and then you don't have to deal with that?
They won't be inside your base killing your dudes.
Yeah.
To rewind, for people that haven't been paying attention, like our Discord or our Facebook, when Owen says painting his JS army, he means painting like the whole thing all at once. He posted some pictures of like 35 models, and he's just working on them all at the same time. It's pretty impressive. You don't tend to do things like individually. It's like watching a city being built all in one day by ants. You've like got everything built, everything primed, and everything greened. What's the plan for painting these guys?
It's green, yellow, blue, black. I think that's it, and then shades thereof. It was one of those, like, when I go to build an army, I usually sit there and look at the paint rack, and then I pull out a base color, whether usually it's black, but sometimes I paint other colors. And then it becomes, all right, what's the other side of this going to be? So it's like, okay, green is I very rarely paint green. Even my orc armies are barely green.
Sure, they're mostly brown.
And so like, I don't have a green army. So I'm like, all right, we're going to paint green. And I want it to be like bright green, like get in your face green. What goes with green? Red. All right, we're not doing red. And so yellow. And so now it is bright yellow and bright green on like motorcycles and infantry and like just everything. And I'll keep posting them in the Discord as I kind of layer by layer my way through, because the way I paint is I do one color the entirety of every model.
It's big color down to like the small detail colors,
and then it's next color, and then next color, and then wash, and then next color, and then that's usually the end of the story. Other than basing, which I don't know what I'm going to do for these guys. I'd say like an orange brown. I was looking at it today. I was actually thinking about your basing too. If you do like orange brown and then like some flowers, some like cherry blossom style stuff, that'd probably really pop. Because you need that cool green, like that almost like praying mantis green that you have on all of them. If you do like a brown, it's super bright.
Yeah, so I mean, like it's like you look at them and then you look away and you can still see them in your retinas, kind of bright. Like it's eye-piercingly bright. Yeah,
and the yellow the yellow is brighter. Yeah, the highlights are moot green. So if you know what moot green looks like, that's the upper tier of it.
Yeah. It's basically, it looks like safety vests on everybody the whole time. Yeah, so some kind of warm color. I was thinking like a warm orangey, like brown, maybe like that Sterling Battlemire texture paint on everything, and then give it a dry brush with some like oranges or like something like that to make it pop. And then that black base rim make them all pop off the table.
My Cassandora glaze ceased to exist not too long ago, but I used to do that plus the like brown texture paint.
Right.
And it does what you're describing in a 1-2 punch, and you're just kind of done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one thing I do remember. I remember when you and I first started playing games, my first thing was like, it doesn't matter. Like every army, if you have a consistent basing scheme, looks 100 times better. And you adopted that so well. So many of your armies, like your one of your favorite armies that I have is your Shazvasti with like the blue tufts and stuff like that. That army pops so hard because the basing is so like strong and vibrant. They really like pop off the base. It's so cool because that's like the finishing touch. It doesn't really all come together until you do your basing. And I love the way you base your models.
Yeah, that army, even re-looking at it, because I recently unpacked them because I was painting up the Sphinx and that for some fun times. And I'm like, man, these are barely painted. Like just like the general idea of putting paint on them, but the base does it.
Yeah, absolutely. The base ties it all together. I think that's it's like the rug, man. The rug really ties that room together. You gotta I think kind of acknowledge the fact that victory lap at the end, as you paint the ribbon of the base, you can make every paint job really like pop to and look really good in the table. It's consistency, I think, adds like a lot to it. And speaking of that, Dan, you did all your bases actually before you painted your miniatures. You did all those deck painting bases. What have you been working on?
Yeah, I find if I don't do my bases first, I just don't do them very well or at all. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna 3D print a lot of bases, get some little bit of like the height variation in there. It's kind of like a streets kind of thing, whatever. But
Right.
It was nice because I could just 3D print like toppers and put them on the existing bases.
Mm-hmm.
But then the larger bases I had to print off. But
Like the whole base, yeah.
Yeah. But they look nice. But no, I've been painting up a lot. I painted up 2 remotes, and then that was all my electronic dudes. And so I was like, I got to paint some dudes. So I painted an alpha, and I painted 2 blue coats and Team Sirius.
I love all those profiles.
Yeah, I was like, these are solid models that have come into most of my lists. So let's paint those ones. Next up on the list is all 6 of my Kappas. And
it's funny, you've almost been like painting them in like order of lethality. You know, like you start with like your gamma and your zeta, you know what I mean? And like you're working your way back down to the kappas. It's so funny. It's because like it's the way you almost kind of like approach list building in Infinity. I always kind of put in all my big like do stuff pieces first, and then all that support stuff like fits underneath, and you're almost not encouraged to paint it in the same order that you're encouraged to put it in your army list. It's really neat. You got a bunch of stuff Black Fridays too, didn't you? So you have some new like options for what you're playing with. Like, what'd you pick up?
I got the Starmada box and the Alpha, and I can't remember what else I got. I got something. Some more blisters.
The Starmada box is a lot though. It's like the Lawkeeper. And that's good because that actually is going to give you access to what we're talking about today, which is Fireteams. Because your O12 only really had access to like bronzes, bronzes, and I think it's Varangians and a bunch of like the kind of everybody can do it. The authorized bounty hunter like duos, and now you'll have like you got everything. You can do the big Capel link with the blue coat, the Raven Eye officer and Cho. You can do the Nyoka's Fireteams with Nyoka's, Epsilons, and Hector. Hector's probably a miniature you don't have. Owen has a Hector. Because I gave him my Hector.
I'll just steal it off him.
Yeah, Hector's an interesting thing because Hector can go into like a full core link in Starmada, which is we'll talk about in a bit what that means, but it means he can go from little power to super power, and your visor guy can go into the Epsilon can actually go in as well. And it won't be pure, but it's still a pretty cool link. He can go with the beta troopers as well.
Yeah, so lots of painting, but I also got 3 games in this week.
Oh, nice.
So that was great. I got destroyed by the werewolves, and I was like, oh, that's what they do. And Fizz 10 is not good when they're just like jumping around chain rifling the crap out of you.
Nice. Was this the local organizer that you played? Yeah. Awesome. So what was in his list?
3 werewolves.
I can probably actually I know what his list was a little bit better because I was watching this happen.
Was it Tack or Cosmoflot? Who was it?
No, he was playing Wallace, Lieutenant Wallace, with an army of Caledonians with McMurrow, a Dogface, a T2 rifle, and the HMG core, and a Harris of another group of them. And yeah, it was maxed out orders and a lot of good guns.
Dan got to look about what it's like to fight the Poors.
Right,
The
yeah.
Poors show up
with
their
a
$1
little
million
bit of dog.
and $1 million ammunition where everything's AP or type 2 everywhere.
Yeah.
And he learned what type 2 was.
Yeah. So he went first, and kind of just, my lieutenant was my gamma, and I'm like, I'm gonna put him on suppression and like hang out. I'm like, this will be cool. And he like runs up, throws a smoke grenade, kills him, and then murders half my team and my missile bot and everything. And I was like, oh well, I guess the game is over. I'll try to do something. Oh, nothing happens. Oh, and now I'm in retreat. So I'll just lose horribly.
Oh wow.
But it was like, okay. But then I got a rematch against
Right.
the same list, but this time I got to go first. And I learned a little bit. I brought an Epsilon, so he'd be scared of the smoke or scared of running through. And there was like a really good corridor. I put him on the side, so he was doing well with the sniper rifle. And then my little automated bot, I found out, where my total reaction bot actually has climbing plus, and so I was able to utilize that. And that was super fun, because I was like evo him to marksmanship, and then he just like pops over the top of some crate at the top of the freaking map, and he just goes and I was able to take out both of his HMGs first turn, and then I dropped some deltas in his back line, and then McMurrow was busy taking out the deltas in the back line instead of destroying my back line.
Right.
And so I took out his main firepower, his dogs were the only thing, and it just delayed it, and I ended up with a tie. And so
That's awesome.
it was just a barely tie. It was just kind of like I ran forward to grab some zones, and I just so happened to also get the HVT, and I got like enough side quests done, or whatever those are called, the little cards. And so it was just barely a tie, and I felt a lot better about it. That was really nice.
I think that's such a big breakthrough moment when you're playing Infinity, when you get your teeth kicked in, but you actually, instead of going like, oh, that sucked, you go, wait, I had choices. I had to make, if I'd made different choices, maybe it would have gone differently. And then you go and try it and you actually get like a different result. That's such a great
and then
feeling.
even then it was like, oh yeah, I could have done so many things differently to make things harder for him, and just kind of just fight better, because I was still almost all dead. I still went to retreat because he killed all of my army. But that last turn, it was turn 2, I grabbed some stuff and we turned up with a tie. It was fine.
That's one of my favorite, I think, Infinity Night things, is when you spend like, when like the like mental breaking down of the game after the game is almost like one of the most enjoyable parts for me. I can think of our weekly gaming nights where Owen and I would sit and talk about the game we just played, and then like theorize lists probably for like 2.5 hours after the 90-minute game was over. You know what I mean? Because you've got so much to chew on. All of a sudden you have all of this like anecdotal evidence as to why something worked or didn't work. And you do your like Monday morning quarterbacking on your game. And I think that's one of the enjoyable things about Infinity, is you can, instead of analyzing like the dice, or you're analyzing like even like the stats of your guys, you start to like analyze your choices and like where you applied pressure and how you could have like maybe picked different odds and gotten different results. You know what I mean? If you'd done a different choice. And that's I think a really enjoyable part of the game is the mental breakdown, the mental math afterwards. So what was your third game?
Third game, I just kind of created a list on the spot, and I was versus Pano. And he has some cool link teams, but I got to go first, and the Zeta ran around and blew up all of his shit.
So, you go hog wild to the tag.
So I kind of just, climbing plus tag is real fun. You just kind of run up the flank and poke around. I'm like, oh, 3 people can see me. That's all right. I got 5 dice. I'll just split 2, 2, and 1, and let's see what happens.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
The dice went my way, and it was good. And then I got to do like my first coordinated order to put 3 killer hackers into smiley face mode. And then we just ran up to all the buttons, and it was the one where you push the button, reveal one of the HVTs. If it's the real one, then you get extra points, but you got to kill them all. And
unmasking.
Yeah. So by the end of turn 2, I had killed all of the HVTs, just because I had some really good board presence, and it was a real feel good game. But it was definitely my turn 1 with the Zeta. He really carried me a lot. He didn't really have a big answer for him. So, you know, what everyone complained about when I was starting Infinity, they're like, well, all you have is this big tag and he just runs across the board and kills everybody. I was like, people say that doesn't happen, but I got to do it and it felt great.
That's great.
It does happen less when you start playing more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I think that you benefit so much from playing different people, different lists, seeing different ways of approaching the game, and you realize that nobody's take on it's quite the same. And that means that there isn't necessarily always like a best turn one or a best opening move. And that like the layout of the table and your opponent's army list can always make for an interesting,
I don't know,
like,
man.
new problem set.
Two Magariba guards baggaging each other and firing 22 mines out on turn one before going in suppression with double red fury bots who also suppress, and then just being like, go ahead, what are you gonna do? It's pretty obnoxious.
I'm sure it is. I mean, there's a lot of ways around that these days too, though. Just sending hollow echoes through the minefield to blow them up. There's a lot of like ways to solve.
Oh no, you spec fire those mines on the rooftops and stuff. Like they're just everywhere.
I know. I'm just saying there's always a way around it. Like there's always a way of clearing the minefield, possessing your guys, throwing pitchers. Like everyone's gonna have some kind of tools to beat that. I'm not saying it's not powerful or it's not good and it's not a crazy new corner case army list that people are gonna have to deal with. I'm sure it's interesting, and I'm sure there's people talking about you offline right now, Owen, because you did that to people at the game night this week. But I'm sure that someone's gonna probably pull it apart at some point. Next week, you're gonna show up with it, and someone will have thought all week about how to dismantle double Magariba guard with 2 Rafiks.
Joke's on them. I played JSA.
You just show a completely different army. You're
playing a different style entirely.
Welcome to Calgary, Owen. You're the Joker of the Agent of Chaos, just barking and chasing cars.
Lots of people here have lots of factions. That's one of the things. There's a lot of like people have dipped into multiple. Like everybody has like 2 or 3 factions. Is what I've seen. That makes for good players too, because their neuroplasticity, sort of like doing different tactics and stuff, tends to go up the more factions they play. I find that good players, once they've experienced one faction really well and they start picking up other ones, I always have great games against people that can see sort of like both sides of the table because they play different armies.
So, question: if you're playing in a tournament, what's the organization called? The competitive
ITS, the Infinity Tournament System.
So if you're playing an ITS tournament, I'm playing O12. Do I have to pick O12 or Starmada, or
it's a single faction for your 2 lists for that event?
Okay,
so it's either O12 or Starmada. So you couldn't take like an O12 list and a Starmada list. It'd have to be the same faction for both lists.
Okay, so sub factions count as a separate faction.
So sectorials are their own faction based on one of the hyperpower factions, which is the main sort of like what's sometimes thrown around as called vanilla factions. And when you are playing an organized play event, you're required to pick from a single faction. And that means faction, like a hyperpower or sectorial. So one of those factions has to be where both your lists come from. Same pool of models basically for everything.
Yeah.
All right. Well, for me, I basically finished my Aleph army this week, which was great. I leaned hard on the contrast paints, that Soulblight Gray. If you're doing a white army, I primed everything Corax White. No, Corax White? Maybe it's Corax White? Yeah, Corax White. And then hit it with that Soulblight Gray wash. And it's almost like finished. Like it's all shaded. It looks really cool and watermarked. I did some highlights afterwards, and I threw on the strong like yellowy gold and purples to make them sort of like pop. I did use that Citadel texture paint. It's called Astro Granite Debris on all my bases, and some Vallejo tufts, some like teal tufts to kind of make them pop. And they're on the Discord and stuff too, and on my they'll go up on Facebook probably in the weekend too. So it was nice to get that sort of hammered out. I got like 6 more models to do. I painted like the Daikini specialists. So my tac bots are almost all done. The HMG, the sniper, the paramedic. I finished off my Asura with a multi-rifle hacker profile, because that's obviously the big hacker lieutenant. I already have Parvati painted from painting my O12 because she goes between the 2 factions. I finished up 2 divas. So the Team Rocket Diva, which is like the classic one with a Spitfire, and the new Diva Hacker as well, to lead the Daikini link. And then I got a Netrod done already. My Marut is done already. I painted up 4 remotes. So 2 probots. I got the Evo Hacker and the baggage bot. And then my toolbox bot, the Daleth rebot. And then The Death, whatever the 7-point repeater bot is as well. So I got a good selection of Owen and Dan hacker because I needed like an infiltrating hacker as well. So it's just like a cool kind of meat and potatoes selection of models. But I got to paint at least one Daikini with a combi rifle so I can fill out that link in a different way. I want to finish my Shuker consultant because I need that counterintelligence chain of command, especially if the Asur is going to go off and have adventures. My lieutenant's maybe going to die. 2 wounds, no wounding cap's pretty good, but especially when Parvati's hanging out with her to do that doctor +2 wounds where she heals it back to full if she heals her. But I want to have that chain of command around just in case. And then I also have a Yadu with an HMG, and that means I can run the Yadu's got an NCO with the HMG, so I can run, again, we'll talk about this when we talk about the list stuff, but I can run a Harris link, a fire team, with the Asura lieutenant +1 order, and the Yadu can use those lieutenant orders to move the link around. So the lieutenant orders aren't being wasted while she's sitting inside a fire team. Because normally if you activate a fire team with a lieutenant order, it breaks. You can't use the lieutenant. You can only use regular orders to activate them or tactical awareness orders. So that was my painting for the week. I also listened to some podcasts. It was cool. We've done 2 episodes now, and we've been getting some shout outs on other podcasts. One of my favorite Infinity podcasts, Lost Lieutenant, shouted us out this week, as well as gave us some smoke from Val saying that I infiltrated Lost Lieutenant. I've been hanging out on their Discord server and sharing photos and stuff and chatting with the fellows. They said some really nice things about the first episode and gave us some good sort of like rules feedback and stuff too about some stuff we got wrong, like the deployment for link teams we got a little bit wrong, and then we got some smoke about the infiltration of their podcast Discord and hanging out, which was cool. If they want beef, they can have beef. They did call us Americans, which I'll just say that this is my favorite New Zealand podcast, Lost Lieutenant. Go hang out with them from the beautiful Melbourne in New Zealand. If they're going to call us Americans, I'll call them New Zealanders. They can all be Kiwis. It's kind of the same relationship. So they're just hanging out over there, making a great podcast as well. You should go check it out. It's one of my favorites. They do tons of activities. They do some really great breakdown. And they do a lot of good big brain stuff too. So if you're a veteran Infinity player, I think you can get a lot out of their podcast. And it was really nice of them to give us a shout out. So no smoke, no beef, except for the real beef of, the various podcasters on the internet. So I welcome it. So let's jump in then. I think that's a good intro into talking what this episode's going to be about. And we're going to introduce fire teams in Infinity. So again, once again, a callback warning. We're going to refer to some roles and concepts during this episode that come from season 1, episode 1. So if you find any of them confusing, check out that episode before you go any further. So fire teams, how to build them and use them in your games. Now, I've obviously used fire teams quite a bit. Owen has as well. Dan, you're just starting to come into this, right? And look at fire teams because you just got your Star Model box.
Yeah, I was like, wait, they're not in the rule book. Where's the rules? And it's like a whole other rule book. And it's like so much crap in there. And I'm like, what? And then I just look at the Wikipedia and then it had it organized nicely. And that was better.
Yes. So in the document, so I'm doing show notes again. It'll be linked in the video description, or the video description, the podcast description. I always say video description because YouTube. There's an entirely separate rules annex for fire teams. And fire teams are like an entirely independent set of rules from the core book in Infinity. So they're often something newer players struggle with because they're kind of like off to one side of the game in the beginning. Because they get discussed and thrown around so often by existing players, though, it's worth trying to at least understand the basics of them early on. And that means that you'll be able to deal with them because people are going to throw them against you kind of no matter what your experience level is. And if you absorb at least like the fundamentals of it, and that's what this episode's supposed to be about, if they're coming at you, you'll have a basic understanding of what they do. So where to find the info, I'll link the annex document, but the fire team chart for your personal army, and every army is going to be different, in the online force builder and on the mobile and desktop sites are in different places. So it's handily labeled on the desktop one at the top right of your army list. There's a little like button that just says fire teams chart. And on mobile on your phone, it's slightly hidden, but you can access it in the army list tab by hitting the little symbol that looks like a yin yang. It's like 2 sort of nested teardrops. The rules themselves. Sorry, go
I
ahead.
spent forever looking for the yin
I
yang
know you
symbol
did, yeah.
online, and I'm like, where the heck is it? Oh, it just says Fireteams right there.
Yeah.
So why do you do this to me?
I know the army one. It's pretty simple on the desktop, but I remember you texting the group chat and being like, "Where the hell are these rules?" And I was like, "It's just a picture button. You just have to hit that, and it'll show up." It's kind of like when you first try and print your courtesy list for an ITS event. You're like, "Just print the smiley face." What are you talking about? It's like there's a button that's a smiley face that spits out this one list that you need to hand to your opponent.
Unless you're on your phone.
Unless you're on your phone, in which case there's none. You just can't do it. so yeah. So the core principles of Fireteams in the game is that a group of miniatures are allowed to activate using a single regular order. So you can do stuff with a group of people all at once. It's a lot like a coordinated order, which is covered in the rulebook. And these models will move and activate following the same chain of skills. And it's really useful to read the coordinated order rules in the N4 rulebook before you dive into Fireteams, because effectively Fireteams follow a lot of the same general principles. The main difference being that when you nominate the leader, which is kind of like the spearhead in a coordinated order, they all need to remain inside that model zone of control at the beginning and the end. And that's fundamentally, there's not going to be a lot of difference. There's going to be who can be in it is the biggest difference, and then what kind of bonus are generated by being in it, on top of just being able to move and act together. So go ahead.
From my understanding, it's also confusing because you don't actually organize a link team in list building. It's like you organize it when you put it on the board.
Yes.
And so in theory, you could change your link team with the same list depending on your opponent and scenario.
Absolutely. And that is kind of a big brain thing that people will do. They might have multiple link options in the same army list. So what you're talking about there is basically in the beginning, when you write your army list, you're selecting eligible models to go into Fireteams. And then during deployment, you deploy those miniatures and arrange them in such a way that they can form a fire team. And when you're satisfied, then you put down that link leader marker and they are then declared a fire team. So you're right. It's kind of amorphous. And that's why that chart's important, because it's going to show you how many you can have of each type, who can be in each one, and what type they can be are the three questions. So if we were to look at, let's say, yours, Dan, because I think that's going to be useful, we'll go to Starmada. We'll hit the fire team button. It says Fire Teams chart, Starmada, Bureau Aegis, Naval Police Department. Unlimited fire team duos, a maximum of one fire team Harris and one fire team core. And we'll define those three terms in a second.
Wait, then, the T means unlimited?
That's right, unlimited, total. Availability total.
Totality of all.
You got it. And then there will be different fire team types going down in the charts. And they are going to go from the named ones down to wild cards. Now, wild cards aren't a fire team in particular. Those are guys who can join any fire team. So those characters could join any of the other types of fire team, just as like literally a wild card they can jump in. So for you, you've got security fire teams, and they can be either Harris's or cores, and they can contain a maximum of 5 Kappas, 4 blue coats, 2 Raven Eye officers, and up to 1 Catherine Cho. Compared to that, you have the Nyokas fire team, which is duos, Harris's or core. So they have a duo option as well, and it's up to 5 Nyokas. And Epsilon and Hector can be in that one. And it goes down to beta troopers, bronzes, law keepers. So you do actually have a motorcycle Harris, or duo, which is kind of cool with the Oko Copperbot. And then you can weirdly take some Toha stuff. You can take the Chaxes. I guess they rent them out from the Toha, which are their weird little biologically made remotes that you can take as a fire team as well. So once you know what you can take and how many of each group type you take, then you select those models and put them in your army list. And then when you deploy them, after you put all the desired members on the table, you pick a qualifying model you've put on the table and arrange the remaining members within their zone of control. So you put the leader token next to the central model you pick, and the number of models you can include and the type of the models an individual team can have are dictated by like your faction. So in O12, you can have, a maximum of X number of Kappas, let's say in a link, plus Cho, plus maybe an Epsilon or something like that.
Now, do you ever run into the case where it's kind of like the honor system, right? Because like, with Infinity, you don't even have to share your whole list necessarily, but also it's like you have to know each other's lists. Is there like is this like a thing where people make mistakes and put people in fire teams where they shouldn't be?
Very often.
Yeah.
And especially in the beginning. So there's tons of things that can go wrong in the beginning with fire teams as you kind of clunkily learn about them and learn how to operate them during the game. But the basic first step is pick models that are eligible to be in it, put them on the table, and then put that fire team leader token down next to like the central one, probably, and measure who's in their zone of control, and they all count now as being part of a fire team.
And that doesn't cost anything.
It's free, totally free.
Totally free. You just get to do it.
Yep. So it used to be and it's not super useful for us to talk about old editions of the game, but it used to be that in N2, only the sectorials got access to fire teams. And there was an absolutely like brain melting number of kinds of fire teams. And you're very lucky you've come in N4 where there's just 3. There's just duos, Harrises, and cores. Because there used to be fire team triad, tri-core fire teams, fire team Endomatarchos. There used to be like all of these different named specialty faction style fire teams too that were an absolute nightmare to keep track of. And now it's just duo, Harris, core, and they allow the way that those are taken to kind of dictate like any like specific sort of army restrictions and stuff where there isn't like a flavor of fire team for every faction. But in N4, even the hyperpower core sort of vanilla factions can take duos, which wasn't available really before. And now there were some funky ways of getting it, but not really. And now every sectorial basically is just kind of expected to have fire teams. So they went from being kind of a rare special treat where because you played a sectorial, you had a really limited access to miniatures, but the bonus was that you got fire teams, to just like a core part of the game, and everybody has them, and you kind of have to know how they work to soak it up. So, and this is worth bringing up. We did make in our episode 0 an oversight where we kind of drilled down on getting fire team bonuses during deployment. But actually, in the November 2022 FAQ, you can no longer move models after you place that fire team token on deployment. But when you do your measurements, you're actually allowed to nudge all the models into range. You don't have to eyeball it. So during the deployment stuff, when you first from the fire team, if stuff's slightly out of zone of control, when you measure that central model zone of control, you're allowed to move all those models until you're happy into the zone of control. So when you start forming a fire team, you're literally never going to be without the bonus. As long as you have eligible miniatures and the right mix, you can nudge them around and place them until you're happy, basically. And then after you're happy, you're not allowed to move them anymore. So you're never going to lose that fire team benefit because you didn't eyeball it correctly for your zone of control. But you might want to say putting that token down until the last thing you do, until your whole army's deployed, just to be sure everything's where you want it. You have all your prone tokens down, things are where you want them to be, and then finally do your fire team tokens, because then everybody can't move after that's all done. So do this like the final step. And then the last thing to remember when you're doing this is that only models, never markers, can be part of a fire team. We made a comment in an earlier episode about Owen having impersonation markers as a fire team with his all-killer hacker Harris of Aragoto Bikers in the JSA faction. And actually, when they all transform into impersonation markers, they would all immediately break out of the fire team because they're not allowed to do that. So they could still be a Harris or like later. You could reform the fire team if you want, but you can't do it in the beginning. And so let's actually define the fire team names and sizes. So a duo has a maximum of 2 models. A Harris has a maximum of 3 models. And a core fire team has a maximum of 5 models and between 4 and 5. Some armies like Steel Phalanx might have a special rule that alters the maximums.
Mono means 1, and rail means rail.
Rail means rail, that's right. And except for duo, there's no minimum for models that you have to include, but you have to respect the maximum. So like a Harris can only, I think, duos basically have a minimum of 2, but a Harris could drop down to being a duo at some point during a game, as could a core. And you can even take a core as a duo if you wanted to, although there's not really a reason to. Or you could take a core as a Harris. You could take a 3-man core team and run like what's called like a fake Harris. So using a fire team during a mission, do you have any questions, Dan, about the actual like formation of it, or does that kind of make sense? Obviously, practicing writing like an effective fire team is something we'll talk about later, but did you have any questions about how you actually put them down on the table, or like how you deploy one?
No, I spent a stupid amount of time reading the other stuff. And it's weird because the annex that I read had all the rules for the other fire teams that are no longer in practice. Is that correct? Or did I read the wrong annex?
So what do you mean? The
like the extra rule
triad book? I'm looking at the extra rulebook right now. I don't see.
I must have downloaded an early version.
Maybe, yeah.
Because I was like, what the hell? Why are there so many? And then I got confused and I went on Wikipedia.
Maybe because you were looking at the Infinity Wiki, because I'm just looking at the Fireteam, and like the one that we linked is
okay. I'll go look at that one.
Is just going to be core duo.
I must have been looking at like an N3 version or something.
Probably, yeah, because there's only 3 Fireteam types, and they all have their own token. There's duo, Fireteam Harrison, Fireteam Core, and there's actually a Fireteam leader for each one now that shows like the number of bodies in it as well. So there should just be 3. If you're looking at a document that still refers to like triads or tricore or Enematarchos or something like that, then you're looking at an old document. It should just be duo, Harrison, Core.
I will delete that document.
Okay, I'll send you the new one. It's linked again. It's linked in the show notes when you guys listen to this in the future. All right, so then if you're comfortable with how you put it in the table and how you define what a fire team is, you have to remember you can have the maximum at any one time on the table. So if your army can only have 1 Harris, you can only have 1 Harris. If you can have 1 core, you can have 1 core. Some factions might change that, but generally speaking, if you're playing a sectorial, you have unlimited duos. Usually 1 Harris and 1 core. Some might have more. For instance,
okay.
Toa has like unlimited Harrises, but no cores, and then duos if you want them. Whereas,
okay, so I'm looking at my Starmada, and it has duo T, which is total, which is unlimited. Harris 1, core 1.
You got it. So when you deploy your army, you can put down a maximum of 1 Harris token, 1 core token, and as many duo tokens as you want when you're forming fire teams, as long as you have the right models to compose it.
Cool.
All right, so using a fire team during a mission. So let's talk about what you do. So the game started, your deployment's done, you got your order pool, you want to actually activate that fire team. So activating a fire team, it's just like activating any other model. It's a lot like a coordinated order, but you don't have to nominate a spearhead. You just move the leader token to an eligible model inside the fire team. And when you activate a fire team, you pick any member that's currently part, and you make a coherency check to the other members. All the members in coherency of the leader are now part of the fire team for that turn. And there's an interesting note here. If someone falls out of a fire team during the coherency check of your active turn, you can have that happen too if you happen to go unconscious. Anything that would cause you to fall out of the fire team, like you become isolated or null, you break coherency with the fire team leader, you're irregular and use you're regular and use an irregular order, they could all make you fall out. As long as you are back in coherency with the fire team leader during the order count step of the next tactical phase, you rejoin the fire team. So I thought that was interesting. So you can just walk back over to them, like bring them back in. You just pop back into the fire team during your next turn. So if you lose someone while you're like operating during that turn, just stand around near them with your leader token at the start of your next turn. If they're still there, then they're part of the fire team. So you're not going to have your bonuses during your opponent's next turn, but there's no need to spend a command token to bring them back in. That was a little like corner case that I actually hadn't realized, which is kind of neat. It's never come up for me, but it might in the future now that I know I can do it. All right. So the core philosophy here is that you can then do skills. Any member of the team can perform any order with the move tag simultaneously. So your first short skill has the move tag. Let's say just move. But also discover, then you all would perform that. And the tag on a skill that makes it a move skill is the top sort of like, where is it left? It'll say like what type of skill it is. So like the move order obviously is 1. Anything that has that tag then can be performed by everybody. If you perform a skill that doesn't have that tag, so like let's say BS attack or anything complicated like a hacking program, that's a short skill, then only the leader does it. That's a pretty simple dividing line. So if you ever want to know what your fire team can all do together, if it's got the movement tag, yes. If it doesn't have the movement tag, then just your leader is going to be doing it for that turn. All members of the team then perform that order simultaneously and generate arrows, a single arrow for everyone that can see them. And what that means is if all 5, let's say, of your fire team members can be seen by 1 sniper, he has to pick 1 to shoot at because you can only react to a single simultaneous like activation of an order, right? So 5 guys rushing, only 1 would be eligible to be shot. And then entire order skills, like so let's say your speculative firing or whatever, would only be performed by the person you nominate to be the fire team leader.
So would that include full move skills, like a long climb or jump?
Yes, that's right. Well, no, they have the movement tag. They have the movement tag.
Even though they're an entire order.
Yeah, entire order skills that don't have the movement tag, sorry.
All right.
So anything with the movement tag is performed by everybody. But if you do an entire order skill without the movement tag, then just the leader does it. And nobody else does anything. They all idle. Everybody else just stands there and idles.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So you're basically trading all your orders to do one thing. So does that make sense, Dan? You have any questions about that so far?
So if it's movement, everyone does it. Otherwise, only the leader does it.
That's right. Yeah. And if it's a short skill, you could do half your order with everybody moving, which is really common. And then let's say your next order is going to be, or your next skill is going to be to BS attack, just the leader would do it. So you have to be kind of careful when you activate a fire team. The bigger it is, the more important it is that only the person you want acting is seen by the thing you're acting against. And this is where there's some advantages and disadvantages to activating fire teams, right? Because the bigger a fire team is almost, the more susceptible it is to triggering reactions, right? The more guys that can potentially trigger reactions. I played a game, for instance, with Jordan recently, where I was playing my Morats, and he sent a fire team of cheer killers to go try and hunt down and kill my lieutenant. And they ran her in a corner, and he forgot there was a Dadarazi sitting like pretty far away around a corner, and actually well out of line of sight. But one of his, not the leader models in his team that didn't have stealth, came within zone of control of my Dadarazi. And he heard a noise and he made a dodge check, and he decided he was going to come around the corner with a chain rifle and be staring down all three of those cheer killers with his chain rifle, being like, well, hello. Like, your journey stops here. You are now dodging until either I'm dead or this chain rifle kills all of you. And it's interesting because you need to be a little more careful the bigger group of people you're doing, because there's more people acting now that can potentially trigger orders, right? Because everybody triggers an arrow.
Is a dodge considered a move skill?
A dodge, I believe, is considered a move skill because you actually move now in the active turn. So if you look up in your rule book, and you'll see what tags dodge has. So you could move dodge everybody. And that means that if you did want to try and like shoot a corner with your guys and run across, let's say a big open field, like there's a sniper, there's somebody sort of like watching it. If everybody moved, you have to pick one of them to shoot at, and then everybody dodges. You make your dodge check, you move again. So the dodge skill is a standard skill or basic skill, sorry. And let's just look up the tag here. I'm just looking at my phone. Move, jump, climb, cautious movement, dodge, close combat attack. I should have thought to bring up all of these common movement skills that have the tag, but I didn't. Yes, it does have the movement tag. And interestingly enough, so does like Discover now, which it didn't used to, which was an interesting new rule where when you are moving, it's one of the only times that like 5 guys can make a check on something. You can all do a whip check to discover somebody, which makes it really likely that you roll low. If you have a 5-man core team, because they get big bonuses too, which we'll talk about in a second. But they can have a very high chance all of a sudden of spotting something you're looking at, even if your odds are really low, because you're rolling 5 dice trying to find a low number, which increases your chances of doing it. So yeah, so climb even has it, movement, no line of fire, no roll. Other movement skills, like basic movement skills, cautious movement, no line of fire, no roll. Its entire order, jump, movement, no line of fire, no roll.
So cautious movement is a full order, but you could do it with a fire team and they all do it.
You could. It'd be difficult to do with the fire team,
yeah,
because you're trying to coordinate a whole bunch of guys to like shoot a gap or something like that. It could be quite difficult, especially if they're like 4-4 moving or whatever.
But if like one guy wanted to do it and the rest of them stay behind, then you could do it and the other guys just idle.
Yep, absolutely.
Or just move behind.
If you just needed that one guy to like, if you need one guy to shoot the gap to go like push a button and they're all still in zone of control at the end, then you could definitely do it.
Got it.
Okay, so what are your bonuses? So what do you get for having a fire team on top of just being able to obviously activate and move along together? So at duo level, at 2 models, you're all going to activate and perform your skills together. And like I said, the big benefit there is, 1, you save orders, right? Because you're moving more guys up table, with less orders, basically, because 5 guys could move potentially at once, or down to 2 guys moving at once. But you're also generating a single ARO. So like we kind of described earlier, you can shoot a gap or run a sniper and hopefully not have them kill everybody, because one guy's going to make it. He can only kill one at a time. unless he's got a missile launcher. And we'll talk about that in a second too. Missile launchers can be dangerous. Don't stand too close together. At 3 or more models, and these are all cumulative, you get +1 to your burst, to your BS attack skills in both the active and reactive turns. So this is a like big bonus to gunfighters, right? Because all of a sudden they're rolling more dice no matter what gun they have. And it's a huge defensive bonus because normally you're down to burst 1 with any gun in the reactive turn. Fire teams shoot all their guns at burst 2. So you become far more defensively dangerous, and it's way less, safe to charge somebody who's throwing 2 dice at you instead of 1. At 4 more models, all models in the fire team get the Sixth Sense skill. And at 5 or more models, all models receive +1 to their BS attack skills in both active and reactive turns. So you even become a better shooter. I think the fluff reason for that is like the weight of fire. You know what I mean? People are leaning out and adding their fire support to you and stuff like that. Now that's for any fire team, those bonuses. Anytime you have a fire team, based on your model count, you get that stuff. Now there's also what's called pure fire teams, just to make another layer of complexity on top of this. And this was a recent change for N4 that didn't exist in previous editions. And it's probably the only thing that made fire teams more complex in this edition, is that now you have to all be of the same model type or keyword. And you'll notice in yours, if you look at your Kappa fire team as an example for 012, it's called a security fire team. Everybody with the security keyword, which is a blue coat, a Raven Eye, Catherine Cho, or a Kappa, counts as pure. Now look at Neoka's fire team. Only the Neokas count towards being pure. So that's a pure fire team, and the Neokas would all be Neokas, right? Or if you look down at your wild cards, there's one guy with the Neoka keyword, and that's your bronze. So you can stick a bronze in a Neoka.
I was so confused by that because I was like, is a bronze a Neoka or a Neoka a bronze? What the hell does this mean?
So, I know.
Those are 2 different models.
I know.
Why is it both?
This is the one thing that drives me a bit crazy about the new fire team rules is they made like an extra level of goodness on top of it. So your Kappa fire team, your security fire team is actually really simple because basically anybody in that list has the security tag, but none of your wild cards do. So as soon as you stick a wild card in that security team, they no longer get the pure bonus. But anybody from the security fire team list will make a pure fire team and you get these extra bonuses.
It's actually not that complicated. It's like if there's a name with brackets or parentheses in the fire team chart, then it counts towards purity that specific fire team name.
That's right. So like a beta troopers fire team, only beta troopers count towards pure. Law keepers, only the law keeper does. So the Oko would break it, right? Bronzes, same thing. So it's worth understanding that though, because the pure bonuses are pretty good. They're not great, but they're pretty good. At 4 more models, you get an additional +1 to your BS for your BS attacks in active and reactive. And at 5+ models, you get +1 BS again in active and reactive for a total of +3. And everybody gets a +3 whip to their discover rolls in both active and reactive turn. So it kind of carves out and makes it more restrictive what you can put in your fire teams in order to get all the way to that pure bonus. And all these things stack. So if you want to unlock the pure stuff, like I said, make sure that your names of all your models in your fire team match the name of the fire team itself. And if you go all the way to 5, then the total would be all 5 models would have +1 burst to all their shots in active and reactive, +3 BS to all their BS attack skills, and +3 whip to their discover rolls and 6th sense skill. So they can't be surprised. So advantages to that in a fire team, in practical terms, this makes the members of the team both more dangerous during the active turn, like with a huge burst bonus and a massive BS boost to the leader. And it also keeps them safer in the reactive turn because you have an intimidating burst of 2 and all those same modifiers and bonuses. 6th sense makes it hard to sneak up for close combat and immune to dodge from out of line of sight penalties and surprise shot penalties. So you're not getting into those minuses for those things with 6th sense. The overall performance of the members of a full pure 5-man team are significantly better than those of the same models operating by themselves. So if you think about like just your Kappa by himself at BS 12 with 1 shot with his combi rifle, that same guy can't be surprise shot, can fire back at full BS with no penalties when being shot without line of sight because of his 6th sense. And he's BS 15 base with 2 shots in the reactive and 4 shots in the active. that guy's abilities climb exponentially just by sitting him around with other kappas, basically.
So they're made of paper still, but they can fire back a lot more effectively, especially when you start giving them bigger weapons.
That's right. So for no extra points, that guy's got a better BS than your Zeta, than your tag, right? And he's firing 4 dice. He's firing as many dice as a heavy machine gun. It's still just a combi rifle, but he becomes really intimidating. And he's also shooting twice in the reactive turn. So you can have these cheap little guys in a fire team. And we'll talk about this when we talk about some kind of like fire team builds, some sort of classic ones. That even like a cheap defensive fire team link can be incredibly useful. It doesn't cost you anything extra. It just means include these models to try and get these bonuses. But there are disadvantages, and we talked about some of those earlier. The need to clump models together in a team and in a single place can become like a huge liability for fire teams. So the bigger they are, like core teams, the more susceptible they are to things like blast templates and direct impact templates. Like I said earlier with my Datarazzi and a big chain rifle, and being hunted down or trapped, like by Owen's mine layers, or dangerous midfield pieces equipped with things like repeaters, jammers, crazy quals, or mad traps. So instead of dealing with fire teams that are that powerful very often, smart players will run up out of line of fire them and drop a bunch of just like chaff for them to have to wade through. Things that when they activate will just jump them without them having really their bonuses, like mad traps or crazy quals or mines. There's a certain element of like all your eggs are in one basket for like the really high-end expensive linked models, and losing them can cause you a major setback if you run into a bad matchup. So if you think about it, if you spend like 150 points on a fire team, half your army, and it's only sitting in one quadrant of the board because they have to stay in range of that leader, that can make missions difficult, right? When you need to spread out and actually cover more ground. So there are some kind of like intimidating sort of like drawbacks to managing a fire team. And what looks good like raw power wise on paper is sometimes not as effective when you actually get it to the table. Do you have any experience with that, Owen? Do you have any sort of like anecdotes about that? Because I feel like that's something that we haven't really had run into for Dan yet.
Like the downsides of power link teams.
Yeah, of running like an all your eggs in one basket, or even just like times you've regretted taking a link team.
I mean, it's hard to. The issue is that they're very powerful, but the benefits for so long have like massively outweighed any negatives from my perspective. And that the occasions where you'd run into something that might dismantle your team, or you need to spread out because there's a problem, there's no mechanics to stop you from doing that. You just leave. You're like, oh, you know what? As much as I like my benefits, this person needs to go over there and suppress. And they just get their orders and they go off and do it. The biggest issue I found is if you get overzealous with your link team and you end up ending in a bad position where there's not a viable way to get every member of that group into a safe position, or at least a defensive position, because you've stalled out of orders. The guy who you needed to kill took one more order to kill. And because of that, you can't get your whole group back behind cover. Like one guy is kind of in the wind right now, and you have to hope that his mods will just carry him through it. That's the biggest risk. As far as like active turn stuff, that's the problem. Reactive turn, I mean, your benefits tend to outweigh the negatives if someone comes after them. But if they don't come after them and you surrender the board, I mean, that's the other side. You went, oh, I don't want to die, so I'm going to duck with everyone. Okay, boop, 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 boop. I have more models in the zone. I win. Like, that's how it goes.
Or they get trapped. They get trapped by things that are around them. There's lots of things that can sneak up on a link team, like repeaters, where they then get targeted in the reactive turn when they go back to active, or mad traps that come after them, or even just having like an ARO piece walk up through smoke and line of fire with them, but then, surround the rest of them with things like mad traps. So if you do decide to engage them in the reactive turn, or suppress at them and they have to walk into suppression, then they're also eating mines. So there's no good choice all of a sudden for them, because the hangers on will also trigger the effect. So if the front guy's in a gunfight, the back guys are all of a sudden triggering things that they need to dodge, and it just blows the fire team up. Very often just making them all do something different is the best way to break them up, because you lose all your bonuses anyway if those guys die, and you lose a bunch of orders at the same time too. So you're putting them into hard choices where activating
in all
and doing
reality,
nothing.
the change to dodge being a move on the active turn, and the fact that all 5 dodge, which they did not used to do, has reduced that problem significantly, in my opinion. Like, one of the ways to stop some pain trains that exist in this game was to do stuff like put mines and mad traps around them, because even though they individually had the stats to basically shrug those off, the fact that you were going to hit for free was a big stop. But now you're not. You can just, we're Fizz 14, dodge, and all 5 of us dodge. One of us will probably fail, but the other 4 are likely to pass.
Yeah.
Which is no different than a regular mine, only I get all my bonuses still, and your surprise shot doesn't work. And I'm
try and make them do 3 things. No, I think so. What I was trying to describe earlier is try and make them do 3 things. If they have to dodge, shoot, and reset in the same order to not have someone just eat it, then you've put them in that hard place. And there's lots of ways of doing that, where someone's going to die if you don't do all 3 of those things individually. You can blow up the link to make them make bad choices.
And it is easier to set it up so that somebody out of that group will get one of those 3, rather than trying to do all 3 to an individual model.
Exactly. That's it. Yeah. Don't try and pick on the big active heavy hitter, but try and make everybody in that team have to do something different. And you typically can then like pull them apart. And because they're all standing together, they're all in one place, you can pile up your resources basically to surround them without getting hit yourself. And you can often beat a link team, not by trying to like brute force them, but by making them have to make choices they just don't want to make.
So what are the things that you do that would break yourself from a link team?
So whenever you don't declare the same, well, I'll just read through them. So in the active and reactive turn, a trooper automatically starts being part of a fire team in the following cases. So if they become isolated or null, right? So if you decide if it's heavy infantry, you could hack to oblivion them, right? Which would isolate them, or any null state like being unconscious. If the trooper breaks coherency with the fire team leader, right? So if they accidentally walk away or you end outside of a coherency check. If the trooper's irregular and they use their irregular order, because you can't activate a fire team without using a regular order. If the trooper's the lieutenant and you spend your lieutenant special order while inside a fire team, which is why the NCO skill is so important, because it transforms the lieutenant special order into a regular order. The trooper ends in a state that allows it to be substituted by a marker, right? So if Owen did his hollow mask trick with everybody, they all drop out. If it's moved to another combat group, they just immediately leave it. If in the reactive turn, the trooper declares an arrow that is different from the fire team arrow, right? So if you do 4 guys do one thing, one guy does something else, he pops out. And in any of the above cases, the trooper stops being part of the fire team. The movement, the order, or arrows is declared. So because it's when it's declared and not when it's resolved, your bonuses can change immediately. So let's say in that hypothetical that I said to Owen, we make it so that a crazy koala goes off. We're going to oblivion some heavy infantry guy, and we're also going to shoot the fire team leader. And they all want to do 3 different things. Dodge isn't going to affect more than 2 out of 3 of those things. They all seem to reset. So everybody dodges, and then the one guy resets. He pops out as soon as he declares the reset, which if that was a 5-man team, now that team is immediately a 4-man team for the resolution of the order. So unlike most things in Infinity, where the consequence of your order or your declaration happens at the resolution at the end, with fire teams, when you declare a different order, it happens immediately, and the rest of the order proceeds under the new condition of the fire team, basically.
And then how do you get him back in the fire team?
Well, you can either spend a command token during your start of turn, or if they are in coherency at start of turn, they pop back in automatically, which we just
start of turn or start of order?
Start of your order count. So during your next order count of your next turn. So let's say in the reactive turn, that same hypothetical situation happened. Owen makes all of his dice rolls. Everybody's fine. And that was my last order of the turn. During Owen's next order count, Owen would have that guy pop immediately back into the fire team because he's still active and he's still in coherency of the leader with the leader token. He would pop right back in.
Now, does that have to be like the same guy that was in it, or can you choose another eligible?
Nope. The trooper who left a fire team can automatically rejoin it if they're in coherency with the fire team leader. So it has to be the one who left.
So what if it's your active turn and you walk up and you dodge with everybody, but the one guy resets, and so you jump down to a 4 instead of a 5 group?
You'd have to spend a command token to reform that team, because you can do that at any point. You can spend a command token to reform the team automatically, or you can wait to do it for free until the start of your next.
And that's in the opponent's turn or your turn?
No, just your turn.
Just
during the
your turn,
order
okay.
count of your next tactical phase. So if you do it during your active turn, you're not getting it until your opponent's gone, and then it goes back to being your turn.
Okay, I think that makes sense.
Yeah. So handy if it's during the reactive turn, like it's going to happen quickly, right? It's going to come back relatively quickly if you pop out. During your own turn, you don't necessarily want to pop out because you're not going to go back in for free unless you manage to survive a whole turn of your opponent doing stuff without your same fire team bonus.
Would you automatically pop back in if you were suppressing?
That's an interesting question, actually.
Wait, do you pop out if you suppress? I guess that makes sense because you're doing an order that no one else can do.
So if I had my link of 5, my core, and I did a coordinated order on 3 of the people in that group, not the 2 that are the leader and the one other guy that keeps it as a duo, and all 3 of them suppress, and they're still within coherency of the leader, and they survive my opponent's turn because they are all suppressing, at the start of my following turn, do they automatically join back in again?
No, because you haven't canceled the suppression.
Because suppression lasts
suppressing.
until your turn.
Suppression
It
lasts
until you
forever,
cancel
until you give another order. Yeah, so they wouldn't be able to
because
they'd
they're
still be
suppressing.
suppressing. Yeah, because they're still suppressing.
So if you're suppressing, you're not allowed to be part of a link team?
No, it's just it's under the suppression rules.
Oh, okay.
You cannot be you're not eligible to be part of a fire team while you're suppressing. So you'd have to give them a new order, or they'd have to move to cancel the suppression.
Right.
So they wouldn't automatically pop back in because they are still in the suppressive fire state, which makes them ineligible to be part of a fire team.
Well,
just Owen trying to break the game, you know.
I'm just thinking about what he's describing, considering what potentials might come from that.
This is why we have Owen on the show. Owen's
people revealed the dodge shenanigans that happened in the active turn to me at that event. So
yeah, no, you're digging for more. I understand it. You're like a truffle pig right now, looking for corner cases. This is what you do. So it can be intimidating. Like I said, when you first start playing Infinity to do this, it's hard enough trying to decide what orders to give like a single model. When all of a sudden you're confronted by a rule that lets you move like 5 guys and do 5 choices of orders at a time. But getting to grips with fire teams here is more about understanding the basics of how to form one and what they tend to be good for. There's a ton more nuance inside each individual faction with how many of each and how best to employ them with the models you have available. And the examples we're going to give in a minute are just simply styles of making a team that can give you ideas of where to start. You can experiment like on your own and get to grips with your chosen faction. And that's going to, be individualistic to you and what faction you've chosen. So
question.
Yeah.
Where can I find the bonuses?
So the bonuses can I just text you that? I mean, I'm going to post this in the,
no, I mean, is it like,
private Discord.
Is it in the app?
It is on, no. So it is in the annex on page 7.
Okay, but it's not in the app it's not in the army builders.
No, I'm just going to go to our group chat on Discord right now, and I'm just going to send you this document because I feel like this is...
Well, I know you can find it online or through the annex. But But because you can find the specific link teams when you're building, but the bonuses are universal.
You got it.
Right? But there's no easy way to look at them other than looking at the extra.
No, it's like looking at an order, right? You need to be able to know, like you need to be able to know basically what your orders do. It's not there's no quick reference apart from the wiki, I guess, but it sounds from, if you were looking at the wiki and it didn't help you, maybe there's some older stuff.
No, the wiki was good. It was the extra rule book that was confusing, but I think it was an old one, so I had a lot of extra rules.
You'd found an extra right. You'd found a double extra old one that's still talking about triads and stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So then let's talk about some basic concepts for fire teams. And I'm going to go through them by level. So we'll start with duos because you actually have access to duos right now in your core 012. So this should be useful. And Owen's been actually using duos apparently to bully people at the Infinity Game Night in Calgary. So fire team duo, it's like the most basic form of a fire team, right? It's just simply a pair of models that move together with one taking the lead and the other one tagging along. Even like the parent hyperpower lists have access to at least a small number, usually 2, and you can often squeeze more out of your order pool by employing them. They don't care about being pure, right? Because you're just moving together. So not taking wildcards and taking wildcards, it's incredibly popular to have them hammered in with a duo option. And you're just creating an efficient order expenditure between mutually supporting units. So some classic examples of duo teams are, and the first one I put in here is the tag along. I hadn't even heard Owen's story about this week, but I put it in. So adding a button pusher profile, especially one with valuable skills and specialist status, to a premier gunfighter like a tag can allow it to clear the way to objectives and get them done with ease, right? So I put the Rafik remote FTO and the Magariba Guard as a duo. It's 105 points. And you could duo the two of them across the board, right? It gives you the option of having a button pusher. He falls along. The Rafik's great in this case because he's the same speed as the Magariba Guard. He's 6'4".
And armed with a Red Fury.
He's got
for some reason.
Yeah. So he actually is interesting because he even covers the range band the multi HMG isn't great at, right? He's better at those range bands, brawling and getting into to mixing up close with those same numbers of dice. And he's got marksmanship, so he's great at scalping out one wound guys, whereas the Magariba Guard goes and fights those sweet heavy things with his multi HMG and his heavy flamethrower and his mine dispenser. Your other option is you could even Fireteam do a repairman support piece like an engineer to put your gunfighter back into action after a bad engagement. Duos like that would let a piece come along if you're worried about your tag being damaged, isolated, or immobilized. And a good example of this is one that I've used quite often in my Corregidor list. And it's the Gator with a Wildcat Engineer. So the Gator NCO, he's got a mine dispenser, multi-heavy machine gun. He's got a +1 burst chain rifle, and he can bring along a Wildcat Engineer who's got a combi rifle, a light flamethrower, and a gizmo kit. He can fix all of the problems you could have with a tag that would make it ineffective, such as, like I said, immobilized or isolated even, and been putting his arms and legs back on if he gets into a bad fight and he loses for a second. And he even gives you access to an MSV because the Wildcats all have MSV1, meaning if you're getting ambushed by smoke, he can see through it and give you some close-in defense. So really popular duos, and this is like the big guy, little guy kind of mutual support piece. You've got some interesting duo options actually in Starmada, even with the Lawkeeper and the Oko Copperbot. What's that Oko got going on?
The Oko is the Fort Observer one, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm. So a lot like Owen's Magariba Guard, but for way less points. All of a sudden, you've got your combi rifle with marksmanship following along with the Lawkeeper. And the Lawkeeper's also pretty cool. What's he got that's super neat? Because I think you can even take the ones with the extra little sticky bots. So
yeah, you can have your little side bots with the heavy riot stoppers.
So you could go side bot, Lawkeeper, and then Oko bot following you around.
I feel like there's a limitation on having ancillary or G servants with link teams.
I don't know if there is.
Unless that's been removed, in which case...
I don't know if there is. You could be right. You could be right that there is.
All Oxbot link team all the way.
Yeah.
So my Oxbots can have burst too.
That's right.
Pretty sure that's not.
Yeah, you're probably not able to.
It's probably going to be under the servant rules.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's probably
because that would be a significant depart. Like it's already pretty different, but that'd be a significant change.
Yeah,
because like you can't even coordinate order those guys. Like
one thing you can do, which is interesting though, is you can give someone with peripherals a G servant. So interestingly enough, and this was maybe why my brain was short circuiting here for a second on this one, you can give Fiddler, who has two little shotgun bots. You can give her like a PAL bot, like a Yazao PAL bot, whatever it is, a helper bot to go off and do stuff too. So you can end up with like 4 ancillaries, 2 that are way off in the wings and 2 that are in control, like running off and doing things. But I think you're right. Actually, you can't if you have a synced model, you're just gonna be able to take the boarding shotgun of the Red Fury, not the one with the extra little guy.
Not my little side bots.
No side bots, I don't think. So you can take the combi rifle Red Fury, the specialist operative if you wanted to, but probably maybe even the close-in boarding shotgun. I like these still has his multi-pistol though, but that's cheap. Like you're looking at like a 40-point little duo that pulls the guy with him, and you can use the Red Fury maybe to clear the way and have a cheap little like order activation. And because in this edition of ITS as well, you have that tactical awareness order on your Oko, he's going to let you push that around even more efficiently and move 2 for 1. So,
but then he can't use that order.
The Oko has to be the leader. at that point because the Oko is expending the tactical awareness order, right? So he'd be the fire team leader for that move, but the Lawkeeper can come along with him because it turns that order into a regular order when you're in a fire team. Tactical awareness orders become regular when you're part of a fire team.
Oh,
it's a special dispensation for tactical awareness skills.
So so in this iteration, because of the free tactical aware, you just get a free move on the Lawkeeper.
That's right.
But then also, as you're moving up with the Lawkeeper, you get free moves with the sensor bot to get into position to.
Yep. Yeah, the Oko just becomes the leader of the fire team, right? And the Lawkeeper follows along. They just switch. They switch who's in command basically for a second.
And then Oko's also a repeater. So once you get to Oko to where he wants to be, you can kind of leave him behind, and then you just run around with the Lawkeeper kind of thing.
Sure, if you want, yeah, however you want, or you can just keep them within 8 of each other behind walls. Like there's no like coherency check except for be in zone of control of each other, right? So they can be on the other side of a building as long as it's not more than 8 inches.
Now, what about with impetuous? Because the bikes have impetuous.
You're not impetuous when you're in a fire team, so you lose your impetuous. It's actually an interesting way of getting rid of impetuous naturally. So without like if you wanted to keep your impetuous order but have it for a second, your Lawkeeper teamed up with an Oko bot would get rid of the Lawkeeper's impetuous. I mean, he could take cover without later on in the game having the option of still having that second order if you break that fire team up.
Right, because a bike can choose at the beginning of the game whether to have impetuous or not to be able to benefit from cover the whole game or not.
They can, but you could also just be in a fire team to not be impetuous.
So then, but if you put him with the Oko bot, in this case, he would lose impetuous, but if he ever broke the link team, he would regain it back. Impetuous.
That's right.
Interesting.
The thing that used to keep you from having cover was that the motorcycle didn't let you take cover. Now the motorcycle doesn't allow, you can always have cover with the motorcycle, and whether or not you're impetuous is the only thing keeping you from having that cover option.
Oh, I see.
And the Lawkeeper is actually kind of unique in that he's one of the only guys that when he dismounts keeps his mimetism. He's still mimetism -3 with his BS +1 damage and his courage. So he's got his damage 14 multi-pistol.
If you dismount, is that like a prone thing where you decide, or is that a
sort of an order you can choose to be mounted or dismounted? And you can actually shoot the bikes and stuff now too. They're just equipment with ARM 0, BTS 0, 1 structure. Like shooting a repeater with a big profile.
Cool.
Yeah. So the other one I came up with is like a format is the delivery man format for a duo team. And this is a fire team with a delivery man. It means tagging along a fighting piece with a support piece that can allow it to arrive at its destination sort of unscathed, maybe with like something like smoke grenades. So the one I came up with was again for Starmada. This is for you. And it was Shona Carano, who's like a premier close combat piece with super jump. She's got an explosive close combat weapon, tons of fighting skills, submachine gun, +1 burst nanopulsar. And she can team up because she's a wild card with a Varangian. And a Varangian has smoke grenades. And that allows you to apply Shona to enemy tags if you want to. You can sneak up with those smoke grenades. And for the low price of 12 points, Shona's all of a sudden got +1 burst potentially on her melee because you can put both of them in melee with somebody and get the additional burst bonus for coordinating in. And using the fire team bonuses for melee combat, which is more advanced thing we'll talk about later. And also the delivery system of getting there with smoke grenades. So that's another popular duo option you could do.
So just to get my mind around this, the Rangian walks up, Shona tags behind because you're both activated at the same time. You would go into line of sight, you throw down a smoke grenade, hopefully they don't have a multi-spectre visor, and then you run through the smoke, Shona follows, you throw another smoke, move through, and then so you you cover a bunch of smoke, and then Shona just gets tons of free moves. And then when you want her to kill things, she's all the way up there.
That's it. Exactly. Yeah. You use that
delivery system indeed.
Yeah. Deliver Shona to a tag. So if you've got a problem with a tag, it's suppressing or something that doesn't have a visor, sneak up around it, throw that smoke so that it's either touching or very close to the tag so you can get to it, and then just go run into melee. And because both of them are in melee, when Shona decides to fight, she'll get a burst bonus to her melee attacks. And a burst to explosive close combat weapon on Shona with all of her martial arts skills is a good way to take the arms and legs off of a tag. So delivery man options for duos are really popular too. And these are just, again, support piece with a gunfighter or support piece with a melee fighter. Just good basic duo options of ways of looking at complementing stuff and just getting more to your orders because more than one person is doing things at the same time.
This is good because ideas. I was just thinking of like Harris's and Cores, right? I don't know why they called them that. It's like, just put a 3 and a 5. And just... But anyways, that aside.
The future, man. We use weird words.
I was just like, okay, well, you want the Harris because of the +1 burst. That seems really good. Or the core, you get all the other bonuses. But I didn't really think too much about duos. But this has really got me thinking of like, there's a lot of different cool combos to really take advantage and be order efficient.
Yeah, I think there's a real sleeper opportunity in duos that a lot of people don't use because you don't see the raw benefit. But once you think about tag teaming a little bit more, not to use a joke because there's a lot of tag options we're talking about here in the duos, but there's a ton of value in that. For it's who you bring along to the fight, maybe not necessarily the bonuses you get. So those tempting bonuses, again, to make the big team. Duo teams are super efficient. They're low profile because there's not a ton of models staying together. And they all add something that the other piece is missing to each other, like reliability, extra orders in the tackler with the Rafik, right? Or the Lawkeeper example we gave there with the Oko Copper bot. It's just about adding like another layer of ability and skill to an already cool piece. And if you think of them as like a comboing two usefully supporting pieces together, versus like trying to hunt for these fire team bonuses, I think you get a lot of sand out of it.
I find it kind of annoying that I feel like depending on the fire teams available is like kind of like the restrictions on list building to take advantage of these bonuses. And you obviously don't have to take them, but as Owen said, it's all the benefits far outweigh the cost.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at those models, it's almost like you should be looking at the fire teams before even collecting a faction to see if those models fit your play style or fit the kind of combos that you want to be doing in some sense. But when you're starting, you have no idea what the hell all this is. So you would never.
It feels like too much. To me, it feels like too much. I like to introduce fire teams. Like I feel like it's more important for you to know what your opponent's fire teams are doing to you in the beginning and then start to stretch out into small groups. And that leads us, I think, to what I think is the best fire team personally, like from my personal play style, and obviously the most versatile and is incredibly popular in list building right now, and that's Fireteam Harris. It's a popular option for taking multiples, so instead of having more than one, some players will just take their core choice fire team as a second Harris, and what that means is they'll jokingly call it a second Harris, but it just means building a 3-man core team because there's no functional difference between a 3-man core team and a Harris, and there's no restriction on doing that either. So you'll have 2 Harrises instead of a core and a Harris. The big bonuses that they quickly move models in multiple places up the board. They're really popular when you're using that independent combat group army list format. So having 2 Harris teams, it can help you maximize the use of like a 7 to 8 order pool on each side by getting 3 units where they need to be. And often, I'd say the most popular threat like build for any Harris team is the triple threat. It's containing a gunfighter, a support piece, and a button pusher to cover all the possible needs that they might have. And Harris teams are flexible and don't really have the raw power of a full core team, but their versatility, order efficiency, and offensive and defensive boosts from the +1 burst in the active and reactive turn, they're a great middle ground. So they're super popular and easy to manage because you're only moving 3 guys. They also don't care about team purity, so you can include any wild cards that you want, like completely freely. And that's my one example for Harris team is just that triple threat. Now, literally the premier Harris building faction in the game, so it's the one I decided to talk about, and the one that used to give Owen literal nightmares was the Toha. I would often run, and Toha are the one faction, they're actually a parent faction with one faction in it. They have availability T for Harris teams. They can have as many Harris teams as they want. And I would often run like 4 Harris teams in my Toha army against Owen. And they almost always were made up of some combination of this, which is a gunfighter. I really like the Sukiel, the heavy machine gun, and the Forward Observer are really good. Just a good, decent all-around gunfighter that had effectively 2 wounds because they had Symbiote armor. A McCall, which is a midfield piece with a heavy flamethrower, contender, and eclipse grenades, which means you always got where you wanted to go. And then a Camille, a support piece paramedic, to get those guys back in action if they happen to go down, and to push buttons because he's a tag along button pusher in that unit. And literally, I don't think anybody does triple threat better than Toha. That whole fire team's 60 points. They have 5 burst HMG with BS-13 and mimetism. They have a heavy flamethrower with 2 burst and eclipse grenades. So if you really want to fight something, throw grenades on it. Even if it has a visor, it can't see you, and then just walk over and make your whip check to intuitive attack it with flamethrowers until it's dead. And they can shoot med kits, right? They can go and heal things or push buttons with the paramedic. And if you take the Suki, if you really want to go hunting armor, you can take the Suki with the K1 combi rifle, and a burst 4 K1 combi rifle makes absolute mincemeat out of armor. So you get into within that 16-inch range band of a tag, and it does not want to fight you with 0 armor. Being damage 12 with 0 armor and 4 burst, you will shred a tag all day. So that's a good triple threat one. I did want to look at your list though, Dan, and say like, well, what do you think might be a good triple threat of your list? So you've obviously got like the security fire team, which is kind of light, but your Nyokas are pretty cool. And they don't, if you're not caring about being pure, you have access to that sweet, sweet Epsilon and Hector as well. What do your Nyokas have options of?
So I haven't looked at Nyokas before because I don't own the models.
Well, then this is a good time. Let's have a look and see what they do.
Are they heavy infantry?
They are, I believe, medium infantry, the Nyokas are, and they have some neat gear.
Oh, they're light infantry.
Oh, yeah, there you go. They are light infantry, but I think they have decent armor, actually. Yeah, their armor 1, actually, BTS 3. It's a BTS. It's good. BS 12, +1 damage BTS, immunity to shock, 0G terrain, and climbing plus.
I love climbing plus. It's my favorite skill in the whole game.
They've got tons of like cool weapon options. You can have an HMG, a multi-rifle. They've all got chain colts, a heavy rocket launcher, and a forward observer. And then you can also take a parachutist version with a Red Fury or multi-rifle. But the parachutist can't be part of a fire team. So there's your base trooper. They're not super expensive. The heavy rocket launcher with the chain colt's only 19 points. So you could have a burst 3 heavy rocket launcher with 19 points. And then throw in, I don't know, Mr. Epsilon. We all like Mr. Epsilon with his sweet, sweet MSV2 for being your piece. So you can even have the Nyoka multi-rifle, like the forward observer, as like your button pusher to hang out with you. And then your gunfighter could be the Epsilon with, oh, I don't know, let's say a shock marksman rifle or a heavy machine gun for 35 points.
Yeah, that seems pretty good.
And he's min-3 bio immunity, so he's always going to be using his BTS for his saves. He's also climbing plus. He's got shock immunity. He's got that MSV2. And then if you want to go heavy, if you want, like, you could just bring, you know, the forward observer, the heavy rocket launcher, and this guy, or you could throw in good old Hector and come at the low price of my entire Toha fire team at 65 points. You could go plasma rifle with a tin bot or a Spitfire with a tin bot. And they're
Owen has explained the benefits of plasma rifles.
Yes, they are quite good.
Roll all the armor saves. You're going to fail some.
Well, the real key thing with him is he looks expensive at, like, if you take his lieutenant profile at 67 points with a Spitfire or 69 with a plasma rifle, he's lieutenant +1 order, so he's got 2 lieutenant orders, but he's strategos level 1. So he's effectively 3 models because he has 3 regular orders, because all of his lieutenant orders become regular because of his strategos skill, which means that he can operate the fire team with them too. So he's a cool model to throw into that Harris maybe as a gunfighter Harris. My personal favorite, and you've just gotten this box, so this is the one I was going to recommend to you, is the Beta Troopers, because they have a chappie for every job.
I was actually looking at that because there's like the paramedic, and then there's the
yes. Now the only problem is you need
expensive.
to mix you need to mix something in with them, because the paramedic can't heal the chappies because they don't have wounds. They can't heal each other. They actually don't have the ability to help each other. So the paramedic is only really super useful as a support piece if you mix them. But you can put that Epsilon in there again, which means that you could have that MSV2 HMG. You could put the paramedic in, or the doctor in, even with his sporting shotgun. So you have Dr. Shotgun, one of my favorite things. And then your last support piece could be a Spitfire if you wanted, or a multi-rifle with a tin bot or whatever. And yeah, they're relatively expensive, but not that expensive. And you could even use the new Bixie if you win one at an ITS event. Bixie can go along. You could have yourself a melee fighter too, because she's pretty great. Multi-rifle zapper, flash pulse, MSV1, martial arts 3, courage, dodge +6. So she dodges on 18s, dodge +2 inches, immunity shock, forward observer, stealth, NCO, super jump, climbing plus.
So if there's grenades or if there's mines, you just run through the minefield and dodge everything.
And she has an EM close combat weapon, which is the best close combat weapon in the game. It's technically better than, I'd say, than whatchamacallit, than explosive, because it's half BTS, and every failed save for troops who are heavy infantry is immobilized plus isolated and a wound.
Does it beat out mono? Oh, and a wound?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's 2 saves against half BTS with a isolate, immobilized for heavy infantry and tags and wounds.
Oh, so it isolates them and damages them.
Yeah. Sorry, isolates and wounds. It doesn't immobilize them. Sorry, I'm thinking of the para weapons. It's just isolates and wounds. So incredibly useful, and it's basically DA against breaker with half armor. So typically really good at shredding tags.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is like the 2 betas, one's the paramedic, and then the Epsilon, either with the heavy machine gun or the multi-sniper rifle. It's kind of expensive with the SWIC, but I find I have trouble filling up my SWIC with O12 sometimes. So then you can just kind of like, the sniper can sit there, and it's just like, if they're not, like, I've been fighting a lot of total immunes, which is really annoying, but if they're not, then it's like, 2 shots, and if they hit, then it's like 4 saves.
Well, don't forget all your wild cards, because your wild cards could also join that. Shona could go in there. Parvati can go in there. Your bronzes can go in there, and a Psychop can go in there. And my recommendation was going to be the Psychop.
Psychops are cool.
The Psychops are cool. And now all of a sudden you've got a mobile hacker as well, right? Because I think you can take a killer hacker, you can take a hacker. You could even just take the biometric visor one if you want as well, just for some trolley multi-marksman rifle for some mid-range brawling. So Psychops are mimetism specialist, immunity shock, and you got a ton of gear options, and they're relatively cheap. They're in the 20s. So you want to keep that affordable beta trooper fire team going. Just take the doctor and then throw in a Psychop and a Epsilon. You've got a really good, like we said, triple threat piece.
What I didn't realize is that the Epsilon also had climbing plus, and so either with the betas or the Nyokas, they all have climbing plus. So I feel like that's really advantageous as a fire team, because it's like, if you're on top of a building, like trying to get down, it just like is order intensive.
That's right.
But if it's like climbing plus, it's like meh.
Well, it also means you can climb to like hunt those pieces that Owen will stick on roofs, right? Like there's a bunch of bonuses having climbing plus, because you can efficiently get to the thing you're trying to kill, or get to a vantage point where you can see it.
Right. Yeah, but it's kind of I love climbing plus. So I feel like I want to build some Harrises that are just like have the climbing plus, so they have the flexibility of movement.
And it's super easy to keep track of their bonuses. It's just +1 burst on all your guns, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of, you have a burst 3 nanopulse out of your Psychop on the side, which is pretty neat.
I was looking at that. There's a bunch of, some of the betas as well.
Dodge this. So those are some, I think, great examples of Harrises. And my recommendation for anybody starting to use fire teams for the first time, use duos and Harrises to begin with. They're easy to manage, and you can kind of like cut your teeth on them and wrap your brain around them, and start to get comfortable with the rules and how they feel to play on the table. So those are my examples: tag along, support pieces, and then triple threats for the duos and the Harrises.
So in summary, a Harris is 3 guys get to move at the same time, and then whoever's shooting gets +1 burst on the arrows and inactive and
reactive
arrows.
Yeah, that's the important distinction. It happens in both halves. It happens in your opponent's turn and your turn.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So fire team core, the biggest of fire teams. It comes in 2 flavors in N4. There's pure and impure. A pure fire team gets the full bonuses, but has to contain models that all share the same unit or keyword. An impure fire team will lose out on +2 BS and +3 whip to discover checks, but they're still pretty formidable. Core teams will have between 4 and 5 models in them. So my first example one is a cheap defensive fire team. And actually, Owen made a joke about this with his Ghulams when we were talking in episode 0 about one of his favorite fire teams to take. And I'll have him talk about that in a second. But the one I came up with is just a cheap and cheerful defensive fire team. It runs at, again, 64 points, and it's a full core team of just the poor, the downtrodden, the Pan-Oceania Fusiliers. Is a paramedic, a missile launcher, a multi-sniper rifle, and 2 combi rifles. So leaning into a cheap line troop like the Fusilier with weapons that can outrange advancing models like a multi-sniper rifle and missile launchers, a pure full core team will often shoot at a potential BS of 18 and have 2 bursts in the reactive turn against models in the open. So running at roughly 20% of your list at 64 points, you can still fit like another 240-ish points of operators to go and do business, while the watchful eyes of these guys hold the line on your home court objectives. Basic combi rifles can be used facing backwards into your own deployment zone to watch for those cunning like air deployment or parachutists and make them regret coming into your back line. So someone like Duroc and Margot, a Raziat, or what's his name? Van Zant showing up in your rear. A Fusilier with a 2-shot combi rifle can ruin that guy's day, because all of a sudden you're watching the back zone. There's no safe spot to walk on and start doing damage. And that's, again, it's, if you can find a way of taking a cheap sort of like defensive link like this, even if they all die over the course of the game, you don't really worry about it. You never really have to activate them. You can set them up seeing stuff where they want to be, and you just let them bleed your opponent's order pool, having to get into fights with a full fire team that has like 6th sense and high BS mods and weapons that are sitting outside of that like 32-inch range band that are incredibly lethal, like a double action multi-sniper rifle in ARO or a missile launcher with 2 shots in ARO. They can be really powerful at just deterring your opponent from going somewhere. And if you have it so that there's only a few avenues to see those ARO pieces, you can get a lot of sort of like your opponent having to dance around them over the course of the game, which depleting your order pool by making people take the long way around, so they're not fighting them, is just as good sometimes as killing the pieces trying to do something. So that's my example. I'm gonna have Owen explain the one though that he used to do, which was his Gulam fire team of 4 observers.
Yeah, I didn't have much to say about Harris's because I don't actually play them. I don't bring Harris's. The more I've been sitting here thinking about it, I can't recall the last list I had that had a Harris, specifically a Harris. I've had cores that are 3-man, but I just don't bring them. It's basically 5 or not. But anyway, yeah, Gulams. Now I don't think this works anymore. I'm in the process right now. I've been looking up the flash pulse, but my understanding is that technical weapons no longer get the benefits for being in a group, and in doing so, this doesn't function anymore. Yeah, technical weapons, they can make BS attacks, but they use their whip in place of BS. When using this weapon, consider all rules and mods that would affect the trooper's BS as affecting his whip. However, the BS attack, shock, and skill and fire team bonuses cannot be applied to using a technical weapon.
There you go.
So, I mean, I'll bring it up because this didn't used to be the case, but Gulams have a willpower of 14. You have a +3 whip bonus for being in a fire team and +1 burst. All forward observers are armed with flash pulses. A flash pulse, if you don't know, is a BTS attack. If you fail, you're blinded and cannot declare attacks for the remainder of the turn. It goes away. Fire team means you get 2 bursts, and flash pulses are good up to 24 inches with +3. And so I would have 4 of these standing in the open, just looking at the board. And if anyone walked out, you'd shoot them 2 to 8 times on effectively BS 20. And if they killed you, you were like 12 points.
Yeah. Yeah. So it does says in the 5 team members, all teams get +1 mod to their BS attack rolls. This bonus is applied to throwing weapons, but not technical weapons. So you do get your +1 burst, it looks like.
Isn't that a benefit from fire team mods?
I'm looking, it's specifically calling out.
Like you definitely don't get the whip. You definitely don't get that because
you don't get whip, no, because now it's just discovers. Oh no, here it is. It's under burst support bonus. During the active turn, fire team leaders can apply a +1 bonus to the burst value of their BS weapons.
Yeah,
this bonus is applied to throwing weapons, but not technical weapons.
So it no longer functions in the current iteration of the rules.
Yeah,
which is a weird change, but fair enough because I have blinded the avatar doing it. It's great, but you can't do that anymore. But yeah, core link teams have always been, from the beginning of me playing this game, that was the first thing that I started playing was big link teams. And you haven't talked about it yet, but there's the other side of the core link team. There's the one which he said, which is super cheap. You got nice little group that's going to sit in the back, and then you have the other side of the coin, where you run a 220-point 5-man team.
We call that one the pain train.
And different factions have their own variant of it. The one I used to play was in the military orders for Pan-Oceania, because they had the highest BS and the best raw stats to carry them through whatever they ran into. And the purpose of this link team is march across the board as a 5-man group and kill everybody. Find their tags, find their camo markers, absorb landmines. It won't stop you because you're high armor with high physical and 6th sense, and you're shooting on BS like up to 23. You can have shotguns that just don't miss. You can have multi-rifles shooting on BS 21 against enemies, which means you're +1 on the dice roll and critting on 19s. And yeah, you put all your eggs in one basket, and your objective is on your turn 1. Doesn't matter if you go first or second, because it's unlikely they can effectively reach out and damage you to the point that you're not going to work, but maybe they do. But on your first turn, you walk across the board and just destroy every piece that might be able to harm you. That guy's got smoke grenades, die. That guy's got a monofilament, die. That guy's a hacker, kill him. Deployable repeater, kill that too. Template weapons, yep, go for them. Some factions can run versions of this for cheaper that have things like super jump or climbing plus, or even just members of those teams. And you run in with your quadruple Vulcan shotgun and just burn and shotgun everybody out of the way. And that is the idea. It is, it's the fist to problem. And then again,
yeah. Every faction has some combination of this. Typically, not all do, but you're trying to combine your raw model profile. So you're taking like usually the highest model profile that's linkable in your faction, and then combine it with those pure fire team bonuses to just brute force any situation with dice and stats and push the buttons and support each other on your way in. So the one I came up with was Joan of Arc as your lieutenant, multi-rifle. She fights at every range. She's got incredible raw stats. And then Deferzen with a Spitfire. He's also a hacker. So that thing we talked about where you're like, kill all the things that are a threat to you. He's the one that walks into range of enemy repeaters and just trinities through the repeater back at any potential hacker on the board, and just uses your own defensive network against you to just go and explode the brains of anyone that you could be fighting. You've got a Night Hospitaller with a boarding shotgun for, like Owen said, that sweet BS 23 potentially with your big link bonus of +3 and +6 for range. Doctor to put everybody's arms and legs back on. And then if you are at a range of that Spitfire that Deferzen has, an HMG on the last Night Hospitaller. So they got pure bonuses because they all count as Crusade Fire Teams. They're 197 points.
Oh, it's so,
yeah, it went down. You got 100 points. You got 103 points now to put in there. And it's not nearly as dominant in N4 as it was in N3. And the main reason is the old critical system for rolling BS attacks automatically caused it when we critted. So having that Spitfire and that HMG where you're rolling 5 dice, it was just a gun for every situation, because the more dice you rolled, the more likely you were to crit.
And the fact that you could roll into situations where you had modifiers to dice, like it was not uncommon that I had over 20 BS. Like you'd just walk out. You'd be like, hey, we're both in the open. I'm on 23s. You're on 16s. Let's see who walks away from this.
That's right. I might just crit. I might just roll a high die and crit you, and you die.
And if I roll a 17 or better on one of my 3 dice, you're gone.
Yeah, because it's just auto wounded with no saves back then too.
Wait, how do you get above 20?
So anytime a stack goes above 20, so the Night Hospitaller is BS 14. He's in a full core link team. So now he's BS 17. And if he's firing a shotgun, he's +6 within 8 inches. So this team would just walk into danger close and just roll a no fail state in the open, shotgun at people. Back when you could crit, because anytime you roll a dice roll above 20, once your BS goes over 20 or 20 or more, you automatically critical. Your crit rate goes up by 5% for every point above 20 your BS is or your stat is.
And every point that you have above there adds to your dice roll. And so even bad rolls became better rolls once you were above. Like
even your low dice go
your absolute bottom roll is actually a 4 now, not a 1.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and you get 2 shots normally, so you have 3 shots.
Yeah, with your
Correct.
boarding shotgun, yeah.
So then, so you have 3 dice versus 1 or 2, possibly, and then
And again, there are things that have led to this all your eggs in one basket, like we discussed earlier, being a lot more dangerous. Things like Spotlight being allowed to be done in ARO now, which even if you're not shooting missiles at them later on during a turn, it swings those odds back in your favor. That huge core link bonus basically gets offset by that same +3 if you spotlight the gunfighter, making them do mixed arrows with things like hacking attacks, and just not going first. A core link not going first needs to kind of hide during the first turn, lest they get ambushed or pinned down by deployables and just the usual shenanigans that can hide a kill team like this. This is still, if you're not super familiar with core teams, it's fun to play. I'll be honest. There's some times where, because the nature of Infinity Dice is just swingy, this like core link will just walk into the middle of the board, and no matter what you throw at it, it will just Deus Vault its way through it.
And you have to remember, they retain all those benefits in ARO. So as you come running into them, there's still armor 4, BS 20 start, and then they go from there. And they're hackers, and they're BTS 6, and they have multiple wounds, and they can heal each other. And so, like, even when you run into that group to try and dislodge them, like, you think about something like your HMG drone, Dan, the one who the climbing plus one. You give him marksmanship and you give him good range, and he's hitting on 14s. Joan of Arc in this group, shooting back at you, just firing normal, assuming she can get good range. And even if she can't, she's hitting on 18s with 2 shots, like 20% increase in odds. And this is a person who's in ARO. Like, it is a obviously more points, but you get something for it.
Yeah, it means that the normal solutions to 1 wound, I'm advancing towards you problems are very likely just to bounce off these guys. And they have literally like this paint train has something for everything. It's really beginner friendly because you've got a gunfighter for every range bands, and you've also supported by a hacker and a doctor to push buttons and support those 2 in heavy infantry if they go down, or fight back against hacking attacks if someone tries to hack you. So, like, you do have all your eggs in one basket. So you got to quickly run over the things that can hurt you and then mop up the rest later on, like Owen said.
And the flip side of this, the way you plan these kind of these link teams into your army is everyone who's not part of that link team is at like their lives are counted in seconds, because your opponent won't kill that link team. They'll go and try and remove your order pool. And so you need models that are like self-sufficient and can like hide or suppress, or you recognize that they're going to have short lifespans and they go and achieve 1 job and then they die doing it.
Because they still have to be able to defend your objective sometimes too. And that's why this can be this style of writing a fire team or creating a fire team can hamstring you in certain objectives, right? Where, you know, those if you're off marching across the other half of the board to go and kill everything that could potentially hurt you,
and then
you have to defend.
Van Zant walks out, and the little guys in the back are like, I guess I'm dead then.
That's right. Or even a hacker walks, like, drop troops in and you know, destroys and mind wipe your your server, right? You've just lost the game, because a lot of times missions aren't about killing. Like, this is the core team that's all about the Sergeant Zim. The enemy can't push a button if you disable their hand, sort of like methodology of winning at Infinity. But sometimes you just run out of game. You run out of game before that job's done, and you've been standing across the board where that fire team bonus is ineffective because you can't see where the action is all of a sudden. So while it is incredibly powerful, it's incredibly powerful in the realm of everything it can see and touch, but the things it can't see and touch are going to be a lot, because you got 200 points that have to be in a 16-inch circle around that fire team leader.
And this one, even more than the duo tag that I kind of alluded to, you can't get caught up in murdering everyone. You need to reserve enough orders to be able to get back. Like,
to get
I need to get back to stand around the cover. I need to get back and stand around the objective. I need to, whatever it is that they need, I need to be in the zone. Sometimes there's the 4 quadrants, and the fire team has to spread itself out in the middle of the board so that there's a few of them in each, while also killing anyone that comes in. So, like, you end up having weak points in that fire team potentially.
And there's no tac aware in that either. There's nothing.
Nope.
There's nothing to make them move faster or move more. It's just 5 orders is 5 orders in that group.
And a little kind of coordinated shenanigans.
Because
you get Jones Lieutenant order.
Right. But it's no like that same mix for 100 points of your Rafik with Maghreba Guard has 4 orders in it. Has almost as many orders as this whole fire team for 100 less points, and can gunfight almost just as well, can still push buttons. So while the raw stats are super tempting on something like this, it is beginner friendly because it kind of can do everything. I think very quickly people fall away from these pain train style builds, especially in this edition, whereas in previous editions it was all about trying to build the most pain train you could, and not necessarily about trying to think your way around the problem or spread your order pools out or find more efficient ways of using the fire teams than just raw stats.
Amusingly, I think in them falling out too, though, they have also come around, and the people that were familiar with how to stop them aren't there anymore.
I'm sure that that's, and you're all about that. You're all about that attacking the meta brain by doing something 10 times in a row and then switching gears, and then no one's expecting this new thing.
That sounds like a one.
Have you considered 20 camo markers?
Welcome back to the Highland way.
So I've discovered that in the online, like in your browser on your desktop, you do get the fire team's bonus chart to tell you the bonuses. It's just not in the app.
Where it's at the bottom of the fire team button. Yeah, you're right. It is. The fire team bonus chart is in the picture there, isn't it? Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, I was looking at the app one for most of this, so I didn't notice that either. Good shout. So that's really it for fire teams. I do want to make some sort of, again, caveats to this whole show. Remember, these are just examples for like starting to understand fire teams and their construction in Infinity. This is not definitive. This is beginner stuff. Every hyperpower and sectorial list is going to have unique mixes of team sizes, profiles. So spend time swapping stuff in and out and use these as templates and like to where to start, basically. Fire teams are everywhere in Infinity and 4, and they get referenced all the time. So quickly knowing what they can do, even if you're not using them, you're just learning the game, is going to help you fight against them. And I think that's really important for getting started and stuck into this edition.
I immediately want to try a core of beta troopers. And like with movement 6-2, climbing bluffs, they're just gonna be like climbing all over everything.
It's true, yeah. And you can do a pretty neat little beta trooper pain train, but they're very like, they trade some things. Their armor's not quite as good as those Hospitallers.
They have 2 hit points.
They do, but they have mimetism, which is a big deal. They mod stack back at people.
Also, so
they don't have a long range gun because they don't have any kind of HMG, but they do have a Spitfire.
They have a dodge +3, so they have a dodge 15.
There's also literally no reason to take, if you're going to take them as pure, there's no reason to take the Doctor, I don't think, really.
He's slightly
except
cheaper,
he has a boarding shotgun. No, you take him because he has a boarding shotgun. You actually don't take him because he's a Doctor. You take him because he has a boarding shotgun. And you could go multi-rifle, specialist, Spitfire with the firewall, SMG with a killer hacking device to break some brains for some reason, and then Doctor, and then I guess another multi-rifle, whatever the cheapest one is.
I will say, as someone who I stated doesn't use Harris's, with this JSA thing that's on its way, I am looking forward to trying out a Katakuri Harris team.
Yes, we did talk about them earlier. The Karakuri with their total immunity, 3 structure, nightmare build.
Yeah, durability.
Yeah, my exciting new ITS 14 Harris team is going to be an Asura, a Yadu
with 2 other Asuras. No,
we're not going that. Owen.
Come on, it's not bad. It's pretty good.
No, it's not bad. You're right. But I'd rather have an Asura that can get back with two full wins, because I'm gonna put Parvati in there, and Parvati does every job. Parvati's Dr. Worm if Dr. Worm stayed in school an extra 7 years. So does literally every single job.
If he was on a reality TV show.
If he was on a reality TV show, that's right. Got programmed on how to be the best doctor / engineer / anything ever.
I like the idea that she's not actually. They all just put up with it.
That's right. It's just different people phoning. And
have you seen her show? She's on Aristide.
She just phones a friend every time, and they just download it to her brain. And how do I fix this? That would be great.
They just said another guy, what's going on an extra walks in. Yeah, that's all it is.
Yeah. Can we just green screen this?
That's not the same guy.
We need to green screen this. I'm so sorry. That's right. But that Harris is 147 points. It's no joke. It's a very expensive Harris team, but it's got a heavy machine gun. It's got a button, like a tag along button pusher. It's got MSV 3, which means it doesn't even roll to spot camo markers. It just does it. It cares not for camo. It has the highest level of multi-spectral visor, which I think is hilarious. It ignores all mods from visibility zones. You can't face to face it. And when declaring a discover roll against a target in the camouflage state, you just succeed. And you ignore all surprise attack mods, which I think is funny too. They also ignore surprise attack mods from close combat attacks, even if they don't have line of fire to the one attacking them. The visor just tells you where you are.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Does the Marut have a good duo buddy?
I don't even think you can do it. I don't think the Marut even has a fire team option.
Oh, that's too bad.
No, Marut stands alone. The Rudra is a cool one. Yeah, no Marut at all. You can do a motorized bounty hunter as like your bounty hunter team, like to duo it with like a Rudra maybe, or the Samek robot. Probot can also do it, or you could do like the motorized bounty hunter with no one else can really keep up. Parvati and Trisha are both wild cards. That's how they end up in the Asura link with the Yadu.
Rudras are pretty cool though.
The Rudra is cool. The K1 combat rifle. Yeah. They're a neat robot because they have the K1, which I think is really cool. There's no hackable rebot though. The Daleth doesn't get. There's no Daleth hanging out with the Marut. I was thinking about that as well. As soon as you started looking at the Magri Brigade, I looked to see if my Marut could hang out with my marksman bot, my toolbox bot, but it can't, unfortunately. So that's my exciting Harris. The other one I'll probably use as a core team is going to be that cheap and cheerful double Diva, which is the Diva Hacker plus a Diva Spitfire with the MSV2, and then the 3 Dakinis. So a paramedic one to put the Divas back together if they fall down, a multi-sniper rifle, and an HMG. And that one's actually relatively inexpensive, like compared to what we're talking about earlier with the Asura. And it's kind of a defensive link. It's like a mid-range defensive link. It might be able to like walk out a little bit late in the game and go to like push a button or just like go stand in the zone a little bit later on. And it floats at around 100 points ish, just over 100 points, as opposed to being 150. But the cool thing is they're literally all remotes. The Dakinis are all remotes, so you can marksmanship them as well if you want. And then you can also you could marksmanship the HMG, and the multi-sniper rifle could have the enhanced reaction.
And then you cyber dance one, and off you go.
That's right. So the multi-sniper could watch and be burst 3 in ARO, while the heavy machine gun has marksmanship and goes and clears the way for the turn in a full core link, giving it like a BS of 17, ignoring cover. And they all have mimetism, and they're all mimetism too, which is cool. So they get to be mimetism back and not.
You can stack those mods now. You have your little cyber dancer make them BS 13 base.
That's right. Yeah, you could. Yeah, you could cyber dance them as well. If I want to build like into that remote link thing.
Well,
yeah.
I have a lot to think about now that I think I understand link teams. We'll see, but at least
you're getting the reps in.
List building.
Yeah, you're getting the reps in. I mean, as long as you have the option to take them, you can choose not to too. And I think that's important. I think that's an important thing to state is like, just because you have the option to take links, you don't have to, right? And start off easy. Start off with just Harrises and duos and just using to move around the board and get some order efficiency. And then you'll actually see the potential.
Or low risk cores, like your defensive, your like you see it with my little Gulams where they just sleep in my deployment. And every now and again, the NCO one shoots a grenade and then they just go back to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Or they shoot deployment zone guys who try and sneak up on you. They're just watching the backfield.
Yeah. Anybody coming back here? I got my gun.
Yeah, I got my 2 shots all of a sudden and my 6th sense. You can't sneak up on me and all this stuff.
Yeah. And then you don't have to worry about too much other than keep them in coherency, and they're just around. They're just some orders. They were going to be standing around there anyway. Might as well make them a link.
And if you make your zone of control touch all the way to the back, it actually doesn't matter what your line of fire is, because you can react fully to anything inside your zone of control because you have 6 cents.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
All right.
It's the cheap ones is an interesting thing to look at as a core. But anyways, yeah.
Sometimes quantity is a quality all its own, as they say. All right, so let's tie up our end stuff, reminding everybody we are at 14 out of 20 players right now for the TAC Awareness Tournament, which is going to be here in St. Catharines, Ontario, in Southern Ontario on January 22nd. So go register and shoot me a message if you are going to be planning on coming, so I can get the proper amount of tables ready. I want to thank everybody that joined us already.
I'm going to try.
You gonna try? Sweet. I want to thank everybody who's already joined in on Patreon and come into the patron chat and give us all our feedback and stuff like that. It's been super encouraging that you guys are actually enjoying this. And just thanks for listening. All the feedback's been fantastic, and we're going to continue on this learning series next episode for season 1. And I think that's our plan going forward, is to continue to try and sort of peel back what order can you learn list building fundamentals and approaching playing the game. So we look forward to your feedback for the next week, and we'll hear you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Yeah.
All right. See ya. Night, guys.